Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and a Sportswriter show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe, and we're getting ready to start off week 3 of the NFL and week 4 of the NCAA. So we got a lot going on, a lot of things going on, and then a great coming off a weird weekend. A lot of comebacks, a lot of crazy finishes. Don't really. We're starting to look and see what we're going to see with football, but I think it's going to take another month. Nate, how you doing today?
I'm doing real good, sir. Thank you for asking.
All right, before we get started, I want to do a little NBA. The Celtics coaches thing. Am I getting this right? Because you follow the NBA a lot more than me. That this guy had a consensual relationship with a female on the Celtics staff. I don't see any complaints from her, but the team is suspending him for a year.
uh, yeah, I don't understand what the deal is. Everybody wants, equal opportunity for everybody. They're bringing, female coaches in, female executives in. They're, merging them into team sports, which is fine. Whatever you want to do, whoever you think is best for the job, I guess. But this is going to happen if you got, a guy and a girl in the workplace, and they like each other. I mean, so what if they made out? I don't know. I read this story and I could not, for the life of me, understand what was going on, and I didn't realize. I saw that he might be suspended or there may be some disciplinary action, but I hadn't heard that he was going to be suspended for the whole year.
They're just starting to start. They were just starting to announce that it could be a year.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy for having sex with someone.
A consensual sex.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Wow, man, how long am I going to be suspended for? Because I've gotten laid a couple times this past week. Am I going to get suspended from the show, Joe? Please.
I know. Yeah, I'm very forgiving.
Let me stay.
Jealous, but forgiving. All right, we got that to get to. You want to talk about the breaking news with the Ravens?
Yeah. We'll get into all the games here in a second, but obviously, the defense let down the Ravens the other night. We'll get into it in depth, but they just couldn't get to Tua. He had all day to sit back there and pick them apart, and we'll talk more about it here in a minute. But something had to be done. The Ravens, John Harbaugh knew that things couldn't keep going the way they were going. There was some people still in the market, as me and you have talked about at length. We went through the whole free agent list, and it looks like a deal just was confirmed that JPP has been signed to the Ravens. And I think, and the reason I wanted to talk about it was I think it's an excellent move for them.
Yeah.
They had one sack on the day against the Miami Dolphins. One sack the entire afternoon. It was a corner, actually, who Jalen Armour Davis, the cornerback out of Alabama, who was a 4th-round pick this past year. He was the only one that had a sack the entire game for the Ravens, and that's just not going to get it done. I mean, Uwe, the guy we talked about, who was had a pretty decent rookie season last year. He had a tackle for loss. We had a couple other guys. Justin Houston got back there. Actually, I think he had a sack too, but the pass rush wasn't enough. And I think it was a really good move for them. Justin Houston's not a spring chicken either. JPP's getting up there, but if he can give them any help with getting to the quarterback, I think the Ravens will be better for it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, JPP, Super Bowl titles seem to go wherever he goes. So, I mean, that sometimes it's better to bring that guy on board. Who's it? Haley? Charles Haley?
Yeah.
Who had, 6 rings? Wherever he went, the team won titles. So, maybe he's got a little Charlie Haley in him. But,
he's only a year removed from a pretty much a double-digit sack total. In 2020, he had 9.5 sacks. I mean, that was a year ago. I realize, last year, 2021, he only played 12 games. He was not the same guy last year, but he still had 2.5 sacks. He had 3 tackles for loss, 5 QB hits. I mean, last year was not his best season, but he was banged up all year and still, had some production. So if he's got anything left, I think the Ravens will benefit from that.
Yeah, I was sad to see the Giants give up on him. I really was. I thought he had a chance to be very good. Yes, he had the hand injury and that controversy when he was here, but it also is like the perfect storm for his career because the fact of the matter is the Giants went into total f up mode where they're changing coaches, changing systems, changing this every other day. Yep. So of course he suffered a little bit up here, and it was good for him to get to Tampa Bay, where he could regenerate that career and go to a team where he didn't have that. I think the Giants, the upper management held that hand injury against him.
It did seem like they wanted to punish him for it, and it's like, I'm glad you've never effed up in your entire life and never made a mistake. I mean, I really don't think he meant to blow half his hand off. No. But let's be honest. I mean, that all happened, I think, in 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
And he still has been productive. I mean, when the Giants gave up on him, he went to Tampa 2018. He had 12.5 sacks. He finished that up with 8.5. And then, as I mentioned, had 9.5 in 2020. So it's not like he's been on some steep decline since then. No. He's continued to be a productive player.
Well, and if you look at the Giants until this year, we're going to get – in fact, let's stick with the Ravens right now because I wanted to bring up a little bit about Martindale. But, I mean – when you think about the fact that the Giants have been a mess and haven't had a pass rusher since he left, I mean, it shows you what a good move that was. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, we might as well stick with the Ravens and the Dolphins, which was a great game last weekend, kind of a coming out party for Tua. It shows what his wide receivers can be, and Gesicki, 6 touchdown passes, fantastic numbers. On the flip side of that coin, I'm going to compare that to the Giants, who won about as ugly a game as you can. But Martindale already has a team of nobodies on the defensive side of the ball that are bothering. I mean, Baker Mayfield, say what you want about him, but they held him in check and they eliminated Christian McCaffrey from being effective, and they did everything they had to do. I mean, with, like I say, a bunch of nobodies. So maybe Baltimore shouldn't have given up on Martindale.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I thought we were talking about the Ravens. Yeah, no. I completely agree with you. Last year that team was just decimated by injuries. I mean, Nate Schmidt was out there mid-season playing defensive back. I mean, they were just riddled with injuries, and I just don't think you could really blame him for that. I mean, they didn't blame Roman for their offensive struggles. So I'm not really sure why they got rid of him. They just didn't have any talent left after everybody went down. And that defense just looked god awful in the second half. I mean, you give up 28 points in the fourth quarter. That's unacceptable. I don't give a damn what defense you're running. I don't care who you're playing. The 28 points in one quarter is just unacceptable, especially when you have a 21-point lead. You should keep doing what you were doing in the first half. I mean, they held them to 7 points at halftime.
Right.
So it looked to me like they kind of went into a bend, don't break mode, prevent defense kind of thing. And that is the worst idea that you can do. And I will say this, I talked and you agreed with me that last year I didn't really think it was fair to judge Tua a whole lot. Just based on the people that they had around him. I mean, Jalen Waddle was good, but he was a rookie, and there was really nobody else. Well, look at what he's got now. You put some people around him, he looks like he did at Bama. I mean, they got Tyreek Hill, 11 catches, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle, 11 catches, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. The tight end who you mentioned, he scored a touchdown. He's got some really good running backs, Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds. Didn't really run that much on Sunday because they were so far down, but the talent around Tua is substantially better as well. The offensive line looked good too compared to years past.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of that coin, Lamar had another great Lamar day. I mean, you can't take away from what he did. 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 119 yards rushing, but he can't do it all himself. I mean, as much as as much or as great an athlete as he is, they've got to get him some help or start doing something different to help him out. Like you said, they sprinted out to a big lead, and the defense screwed it up. But still, they're depending a lot on him.
Yeah. First off, they need to get J.K. Dobbins back. You can't have Lamar Jackson, throwing for 300 yards and then having to run for 100 yards. There's got to be. He needs some help back there. And Justice Hill, Kenyon Drake, and Mike Davis. Those guys aren't going to get it done. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just not really helpful for Lamar. I mean, he needs somebody back there that can. I mean, think about if they could have run the ball more effectively when they were up by 3 touchdowns. They could have run the clock out.
Yeah.
They could have run the clock out and won the game. But they had. I can't really fault Roman in the play calling because they had to keep throwing it because they couldn't run it. I mean, Lamar was the only one that could run the ball effectively. 13.2 yards per carry. But they started to key on him and there was no one else that could help him. So I think JK should be back probably next week is what I've been hearing. Maybe this week, but I think probably next week. And they need him back bad.
Let's start with last Thursday. Let's go back to that. Chiefs Chargers, kind of a back and forth game. The worst things that could have happened for the Chargers is, first of all, losing the game, and secondly, having Herbert beat up.
Yeah.
That's when those injuries that there's no timetable on when he'll be better. He's going to probably play through it most of the time, but, will he be himself?
Yeah, I mean, supposedly he's going to play, and, I get it. But if he goes down, they're in big trouble. He was amazing in that game. I mean, some of the throws the Chiefs actually played really well on defense. I felt like, but they'd get to 4th down and it'd be 4th and 10, and he would rip off some crazy pass that it didn't really matter what defense they were playing. I mean, he just played really good, but. That it looked like he was in a lot of pain and he was having limited mobility. Now they can shoot that up based on where the injury is and what the injury is. They can shoot that up, but they can't shoot it up for practice. And, we saw what happened a couple of years ago with old Tyrod Taylor when they shot him up. They're facing a huge multi-million-dollar lawsuit for that. So, that's kind of his call, whether or not he wants to do that. But God, he takes another shot, the Chargers season could be damn near over.
Oh yeah. And then we got first game to talk about on Sunday. I'd say Patriots Steelers. Not a real exciting game, but that's probably going to be the formula for the Patriots this year. Getting into that kind of a game, keeping it close to the vest, keeping it low scoring, and I think Belichick. I don't want to say that he's got Tomlin's number, but he seems to always come out ahead of the Steelers. And they needed it to get the boo birds or whatever you want to call it, the people the buzzards circling around waiting for the end of Belichick, maybe away from Foxborough for a few weeks.
Yeah, I sure hope so. This game, I think, to me was an indication of a couple of things. This is kind of, like you said, what the Patriots – who they want to be. They want to run the ball. They ran the ball 31 times. They ran it fairly effectively. About 4 yards a carry was what they finished the day on. That's going to win you a lot of ball games if you can run it for 4 yards a carry. And then, they made plays when they had to. That Mac Jones pass that was a little bit underthrown, but Nelson Aguilar made a nice play on it and had a 44-yard touchdown. So that was huge. And the biggest takeaway for me from this game was Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky looked like Mitchell Trubisky to me. He looked exactly like the same guy that played for Chicago for 3 years or whatever it was. He looked exactly the same, and I didn't understand why everybody thought he was going to be some different dude after sitting on the bench for a year in Buffalo. I just didn't understand it. I wasn't sure why he was such a sought-after commodity after watching the preseason as closely as I did, I didn't understand why they named him the starter. Kenny Pickett looked better to me, and I think it's time. I mean, we saw last year screwing around like the Chargers did, or the year before, waiting and waiting and waiting. Make the move, put the guy in that gives you the best chance to win. I think Kenny Pickett. If the Steelers want to make the playoffs, I think they need to get him ready. I'd rather lose a game or two right now and get your quarterback ready to go.
Especially with the fact that 2 years ago, Tomlin won 8 games with non-existing quarterbacks.
Yeah,
he can take a rookie.
Ducky Hodges.
Yeah, he can take a rookie. He can take a rookie and make something out of him. So I totally agree with you.
The only other point I'll make is T.J. Watt being lost is huge. For the Steelers. I mean, their defense is just completely different with him out there. Don't believe they had a sack all day long. So they're going to have to figure that out. I don't know if that means dialing up blitzes. I don't know if that means bringing Fitzpatrick. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do, but they just don't have anybody else that can play like TJ Watt. I mean, no one does, but I'm just saying they don't really have anybody else that can rush the passer.
Yeah, that's for sure. Then we got the Buccaneers Saints, which was a very slow game. Defensive battle for most of it. A couple of things out of this game. First of all, Tom Brady, don't cry about your wide receiver getting suspended when you're the one who started the fight. And, Jameis Winston, a lot of people are saying, well, the old Jameis is back. Well, he's playing with a broken back. And I don't know how serious that's going to be. I don't know how limiting that's going to be. But I do know that if he's got a fractured back, it's not going to get better till after the season.
No, supposedly it can't. They said he can't really hurt it worse, I guess, is why he's continuing
because it's
to
broken.
Play. But I'm like, it's he's in pain and he's already got fractures. I mean, obviously they're not horribly fractured, but I mean, damn, you're throwing the ball. I mean, that's a lot of torque on your back. I don't know.
Think about this one. Think about Baker Mayfield playing with a bad left shoulder, how it affected his throwing last year. Right. This is, like you just said, a back. I mean, it's not going to get better.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I guess I would give him another game to see if he can be effective, but he just didn't look the same to me. He looked like he was hurt. He looked like Baker looked last year. He looked like he was injured. And, I don't like the red water pistol, but I think you may have to go with him if Jameis is going to be hurt.
Well, the whole thing is if you're going to make the choice, make it now where you got time to make it up when he gets better. Yeah. Give him a week off. Give him 2 weeks off. See what can be done. But I mean, to play around with it, we will see. But
well, the other thing is, Jameis wasn't really responsible for him getting sacked 6 times.
No.
They got rid of. They didn't sign Teron Armstead back. They're going with kind of a reworked offensive line, and for whatever reason, it just didn't look great. Obviously the Bucs have a good pass rush. They've got a good defense. But, James Hurst out there at left tackle concerns me. Ryan Ramchick's been a little bit banged up. So, I don't know. I just that's not going to cut it. You can't give up 6 sacks and expect to beat a team as good as the Bucs.
No, and the other thing is we'll do a little Brady. And what is Bruce Arians doing on the sideline? First of all, he quit. Go upstairs, get yourself off the sideline. I like Bruce Arians as a person. I wanted to have him as a Giants coach, but the fact of the matter is, like Bruce, it's not a good look actually for Todd Bowles to have you standing on the sideline, berating referees and stuff.
And starting fights.
Yeah, starting fights, and then Tom. I guess we're more critical of him now, but I mean right now, if the Buccaneers, they're probably going to be a playoff team, but if they're not, we're going to look back and say, what was the distraction of Tom Brady worth the benefits of having him there? Because I guess he practiced this Wednesday, but now he's not going to practice on Wednesdays, or maybe he will practice on Wednesdays. He needs time off in the middle of training camp. He needs this. He needs that. He wants this, he wants that. I mean, it worked the first year. Maybe they should have just left him retired. I mean, let's just put it right where it is. I mean, is his heart really in it? I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know, but
I don't know. He didn't look great, and I don't. What I don't get is why no one criticizes him. Jameis has a bad game, and it's the number one news story in the country. But Brady has a 79 rating and a QBR of 30.9, and nobody says shit. And I don't really understand that. I mean, if you're gonna praise him when he does well, I think we can also criticize when he plays poorly. I mean, I get it. They won. But let's be honest, that was more on that defense than it was Tom Brady. I mean, defense got him what? Would they have 4 fumbles? They lost 2, and then they also had 3. They had 5 takeaways. It's going to help your quarterback out when you get 5 takeaways.
He's at the stage where he kind of dictates I mean, he can be having a bad game, and the announcers make it sound like he's having a good game. And it's not even home team announcers, and that's what makes it kind of ridiculous. But, that's part of being as great as he was for as long as he is. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, you got to look at it and be honest and say, like I just said, is the distractions worth what you're doing to the rest of the team? And the next game I want to look at is the Jets and the Browns. Kevin Stefanski is, we talked at length about last year, but to have defenses collapse in the fourth quarter 2 weeks in a row, and I don't care if he's going to say, well, I don't call the defenses. You're the head coach. Nothing should have been like that on Sunday. And to let the Jets come back and win that game, Kevin Stefanski, somebody's got to have to start looking at him.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. He would have lost week 1 if that guy didn't hit a 60-yard field goal as time expired.
Yep.
So they could easily be 0-2 right now playing the Panthers and the Jets. That's embarrassing. And, that game should have never, ever been lost. You have a 2-score lead with what?
90 seconds.
A minute to go. Just over a minute to go, and you're up by 14. And people were critical of Nick Chubb, saying he should have fell down. Well, you know what? These running backs have a short shelf life. A lot of them have their contracts incentive laden. Maybe he gets, more money for each touchdown he gets. So I don't really think you need to tell the running back to lay down.
How about Cooper on the onside kick?
Yeah.
Fall on the ball, maybe?
Yeah, get the onside kick.
That's maybe, like OBJ did to the Giants a couple of years ago.
Or maybe better yet, don't let a guy run right past you when you're in cover 3 trying to keep everything in front of you to save the game. I mean, they're trying to blame the running back who scored a touchdown when you're up by 14 with a minute left. I mean, hell, that's not the running back's fault that you lost the game. I mean, he wasn't on the field for any of those plays after that. I put this on the coach, and I put this on the secondary, let the special teams, and I put it on the secondary, letting the guys get by. And, I think we need to talk a little bit about, the teams that are, after we get through these games, we need to talk about these teams that are 0-2 and talk about which ones are just, 0-2. Yeah, and which ones of them are god awful, because I've got some comments on that. And Stefanski, I've got some questions with his coaching. And once we get to the Bengals, we need to discuss my boy Zach Taylor, who has been horrible thus far coaching.
The other thing I want to bring up is I want to go to the other side of the field, and it's probably Robert Saleh's greatest moment as Jets coach. But I don't know if first of all, leading up to it, when he was arguing with the media saying he was taking names, but that worked out for him. But the one thing is, and I know this isn't really his fault, but they asked him about Joe Flacco, who had a great game. I mean, he led that comeback. For Joe Flacco, that was probably the best he's played since his great Baltimore days. But, he answers, Zach's our quarterback. And, I'm getting sick of 2 things with the NFL. These coaches who are afraid to put their quarterbacks on the griddle a little bit. Zach Wilson, if I was his, first of all, coaches are judged on wins and losses. His job is to not make Zach Wilson have a nice career.
Nope.
I would have said, right now, we're coaching for this week. Zach's not available, so I'm not even worried about that.
Yep.
Joe Flacco did a great job, and Joe Flacco's our coach. And in the back of my mind, I'm saying if we're winning, if they can, and they might be able to win the next 2 weeks with Cincinnati being in a mess and Pittsburgh being what Pittsburgh is right now, I was putting them as being like 2-9. They might be able to come out of the first weeks 3-1 if Flacco plays okay. And if Flacco was to get him to 3-1, why would you be in a hurry to put Zach Wilson in? First of all, if I was on anybody on the rest of that team, I'd be PO'd.
Yep.
We're out here sweating our butts off. Okay, he's rehabbing, but this guy's led us to 3 victories. I want to stay with him, the hot hand. I don't want him being brought in until Joe starts going back to being old Joe instead of new Joe. And the other thing is, these coaches who sit there and think that their job is to make a young quarterback into a superstar, that's not your job. Your job is to win games.
Well, and let's just think about this for a second. Joe Flacco had over 300 yards passing and 4 touchdowns, right?
Right.
Do you know how many games Zach Wilson's had where he's had over 300 yards?
0.
Do you know how many games he's had where he's thrown over 4 touchdowns?
0.
Or 4 touchdowns?
Yeah.
0. He's never thrown more than 2 touchdowns in a game. I think the most yards he's ever thrown for in a game was 297 in overtime, that overtime win versus Tennessee. So this guy just did something that your starter has never done. Why would you F with that? I mean, maybe sitting here and learning how Joe Flacco is going about his business would benefit this young man.
Exactly.
Instead of just throwing him out there because you drafted him high. I don't give a damn where you drafted him. He sucks. He hasn't played very well yet. Let's not just throw him back out to the Wolves and see if he's, healthy enough to play and if he can figure it out. Why not keep I mean, he didn't play. Flacco didn't play horrible week 1. So
Right.
Let's just keep this guy out there playing. I mean, I can't believe I was surprised as anybody being a Jet fan and knowing Joe Flacco. I've been shocked at how well he played. But why would you screw with that and put the kid out there for no reason?
Especially with a couple of good young wide receivers, good young running backs. Having a veteran out there can only help them right now. Not having to, be hung out to dry by a guy who doesn't know how to put the ball into a nice window and stuff like that. So,
well, and could not have made that throw that Joe Flacco made to win the game to my boy Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State. Zach Wilson's not making that throw.
No, he would hit the safety in the chest.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm sorry. He just doesn't have the arm that Joe Flacco does. And I told you before, I saw the guy play in person when he was a sophomore. And he came here in Knoxville and played against Tennessee. And I was just kind of like, I was the meh emoji. And I didn't think much of him. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing all these people talking about him being the first pick in the draft. And I was just like, whoa, what did I miss?
Drafted.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't agree with that, and I think that I think you should stick with Joe Flacco. Hell, I've seen at times where Mike White has been better than Zach Wilson. So he might be the 3rd best quarterback on this team right now.
And it's not even a question of better or worse. It's a question of who's giving you the best chance to win right now. You want to, the whole thing is, it's like when the Jets a few years ago made it all about Sam Darnold and Todd Bowles got fired.
Yep.
If they had left Teddy Bridgewater in see what Teddy would do, and maybe Sam could have sat behind him, I'll guarantee you they would have won more games.
Yeah, so, I agree with that.
Anyways, with a quick one going over, you kind of called it and you've glanced at it. Jaguars over the Colts, but man, that is bad to get shut out by the Jags, man. With Matt Ryan. We talked about it last week. We got to look at Frank Reich along with Stefanski here. Yeah. As you pointed out last week, they gave you Phillip Rivers. They gave you Carson Wentz. Now they gave you Matt Ryan. What more do you – I mean, it's not like they're giving him crap at quarterback. And Frank Reich, you're supposed to be the quarterback whisperer. And he's not even using his running game anymore, which makes no sense to me.
Jonathan Taylor has 9 carries for 54 yards. I mean, are you kidding me? This guy is the best running back. And I'm saying this. I'm a Derrick Henry fan, and I love Derrick Henry. He's my favorite player besides Lamar Jackson in the NFL right now. But Jonathan Taylor has just been better than everybody else. And you're going to give this guy 9 carries. And let's be honest, Matt Ryan, statistically still was pretty good last year, but he looks horrible under Frank Reich. And, everything was kind of put on Carson Wentz's shoulders, and all the blame was kind of shoved over his way. Well, he's gone, and they're playing worse. So I think you got to start looking at your coach. I mean, they tied the Texans in week 1 and now lost to the Jaguars. I mean, those are in my evaluation, 2 of the worst teams in the league, and you get shut out and shellacked 24-0. Yeah. That was embarrassing.
You should be embarrassed. If you're not embarrassed, it's a big problem. And then, of course, we got the Seahawks, Niners. You feel sorry for Trey Lance, but it probably is better all around that it came down to an injury rather than what we knew was going to happen in a few weeks. When Trey Lance wasn't doing well, people would be calling for Garoppolo. Garoppolo would go in. They'd give Trey Lance back when Garoppolo wasn't good or something like that. At least the Niners know who their quarterback is the rest of the year. And put Trey Lance on the back burner for another year.
Yeah, well, that's what we said before the season started. And, my whole thing was they kept touting that Garoppolo wasn't going to be wasn't going to be the starter because he's oft injured. And that, the reason that they were, potentially moving on from Garoppolo was that he always got hurt. Well, Trey Lance has started, 4 games, and he's gotten hurt twice, and now is out for the season. I mean, if durability is the sole reason we're judging quarterbacks here, this guy's been less durable than Garoppolo. Right. So, I don't understand what we got here. Flacco crushed Bronco fans back in 2013. Highlighter's career as the Ravens rallied to defeat Knoxville's Peyton Manning. He ain't mine, Peyton Manning, dude. I hate Peyton Manning, so don't be calling him Knoxville's boy. Knoxville's boy is T. Martin. He's the one that won the national championship, not Peyton, who's 0-4 against Florida. But yeah, the Niners. I got to be honest, man. I mean, they look like the team of last year. As soon as Jimmy Garoppolo went in, I was kind of concerned about his shoulder. I didn't know what he would look like. Hasn't played all year. So I was like, oh, he might be rusty. He picked up right where he left off. It looked like them down the stretch. I mean, they went to the NFC Championship game because of Jimmy Garoppolo. He is what he is. I mean, he's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but the team loves him. He's hot. The girls think he's hot. And he plays pretty well. 13 of 21, 154 yards, touchdown. I'll take that all day, winning 27-7. So I'm really happy for Jimmy. And the biggest thing with him is I haven't heard a word out of him. This whole thing's happened. He hasn't said one word.
And the other thing, if you noticed it, the team kind of reacted to him.
Yeah. They went nuts.
They were like, you're that's the one thing when everybody's saying, oh, everybody's behind Trey Lance. The locker room's going to say what they're supposed to say. Yeah. And you have to be inside the locker room to know what's really going on. And the whole thing is, no matter what, Jimmy G, we don't know him personally. I don't know him, but he did lead these guys to a Super Bowl. He has put, for lack of a better term, he's put meat on their table. He's helped them get to championship games. And, I'm sure a few of them didn't like the fact of how he was treated. So
I didn't like it. So I'm sure they didn't like it. I thought the whole, idea behind this NFL games was trying to win. And the last time I checked, Jimmy Garoppolo was 31-14 as a starter with the 49ers.
No, he's
33-14 as a starter with the 49ers. And, that's pretty damn good.
It is. And the other thing, that goes right with the Zach Wilson thing. Coach, you want to keep your job? Well, Shanahan's a little bit better off than Saleh is, but still. The Rams got back on the winning column, but it took late. They would look like the Falcons were coming back. I mean, 31-27. The Falcons have been better than advertised so far. but the Rams needed that win and they got it. I don't know what it tells us about the Rams right now. I'm a little worried about their defense.
Yeah, their special teams was also pretty rough in this game too. So that concerns me big time. I don't know what we're looking at, but Matt Stafford, 2 more interceptions. The guy still looks a little bit rusty in my opinion, and I've been impressed with the Falcons so far. I know that they're 0-2, but they're probably the team that I'm the least worried about, honestly, as far as 0-2 goes. I mean, do I think they're going to make the playoffs? Definitely not. But it looks like they're going to play hard, and they're going to be in a lot of ball games.
You know what I've noticed, and you'd be better at analyzing this for me than me, but what I've been noticing is the defensive backfield play has been a little shaky throughout the league so far.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, what's his name? The corner for the Rams, Jalen Ramsey, he's supposed to be the best corner in the league. And I've seen that guy get torched time and time again, especially the first game. He looked horrible. So maybe it's just getting back into the groove. I don't really know. But, yeah, I've seen a lot of bad cornerback play. I got to be honest. We'll talk about it here in a minute. But the Eagles game the other night was the first time I've seen a corner really step up and help his team win. And that was obviously Slay.
And, would go quickly. I mean, the Broncos are even making fun of their new coach already. I mean, they're doing the countdown for the play clock. I mean, it's pretty bad out there already. I mean, they got a victory over the Texans, but only by 7 points. I'd call that kind of a tie. So, I mean, it's right now the Russell Wilson move ain't looking too good. I mean, he got out of the gate really slow on Sunday, and then in the second half turned it around a little bit. But man, Coach Hackett ain't looking like he's ready for the NFL.
Yeah, well, I told you that a year ago. I didn't really understand the hire. Obviously, LaFleur called the plays in Green Bay, or Aaron Rodgers did. So I wasn't really sure why you were hiring away the offensive coordinator from Green Bay when the guy didn't really do anything. So I'm really confused as to why he was, their first choice and the guy that they went with. He looks like he has no idea what he's doing. And, you paid $250 million for Russell Wilson and you lose to the Seahawks and, beat the Texans by 7. I mean, that's not a good start.
You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Dave Campo. When Dave Campo was the Cowboys coach, remember how confused he looked on the sidelines? He looks like he should be pumping air into the ball instead of doing anything else.
I don't know, but this guy's supposed to be an offensive guru, and we saw him last week in Seattle where they had the ball 3 times on the 1 and couldn't get a touchdown. They fumbled it twice and then got stopped on 4th down, and I was just like, this guy's getting $5 million a year because of his offensive play calling, and he can't get the ball in from the 1 in 3 tries. Yeah. Yikes.
One of the big sports writers around here, Mike Lupica, used to say, well, the guru better start guruing soon.
He better.
Let's get to a quick look at, Josh McDaniel ain't coming out of the gate too good either. I mean, that's another game where how do you let the Arizona Cardinals, who were beat down the first week and are on the freaking mat, get up, come back? I mean, Kyler Murray made some great plays, fantastic and everything. But, I mean, how do you let him come that far back?
I don't know. How do you score 3 points after halftime? You're up 20-0 at halftime, and you come out of the locker room and you score 3 points. And then, the end of the game, they stopped them on 4th down, and there was a phantom defensive holding call. So the Cardinals get a first down out of it and, get 4 more tries. And, Kyler Murray tries to throw it in 3 times, and then finally he just runs it in. And that's how they end up sending it to overtime. But, then you have, we got a lot of questions about some of these coaching. Hackett looks horrible. Honestly, Josh McDaniels couldn't have controlled this game worse at the end. They've got the ball. They're going down to potentially win the game, and they're throwing it all over. They're in position to kick the field goal, and they're throwing the ball all over and fumbled it twice. So, I didn't really understand any of that. And it looks like, we heard all offseason how McDaniels had learned from his experiences in Denver. Well, it doesn't look like he's learned a whole lot to me. It looks like the same guy that was
That's what I mean.
coaching
Yeah,
in
he
Denver.
did. He learned how to be that guy in Denver again.
Yeah, it looks like he learned how to be himself. They were all like, "Oh, he's not going to make the same mistakes he made in Denver." I'm like, looks to me like he's coaching exactly the same. So
No, the only thing is Tim Tebow isn't available.
Shit, they could have used him.
And then I tell you, somebody better tell the Bengals offensive line that their meal ticket is sitting behind them, because the one play that stuck out on Sunday for me was the play where the right tackle of the Bengals has Micah Parsons over him and turns inside.
Yeah.
I mean, where in God's name you don't notice that Micah Parsons, maybe the best young linebacker in football, is standing over you and you might want to hit him?
Might be a good idea. Yeah, no, that was the other thing Bradford brings up too. They've got Darren Waller, who's one of the best tight ends in the league, and he's out there for the exact same amount of snaps as Foster Moreau. And I don't really get that. And then Devontae Adams, they pay $150 million for him, and he gets 2 catches for 12 yards. So that was kind of confusing to me. But I gotta be right there with Andy Bradford here. The Broncos offensive line has been awful, and Russ, I can't really blame Russ for all this. The coaching's been bad, as Bradford attests. The offensive line has been bad. I've got some real questions about your Broncos, Bradford. Things are not looking good so far.
No, not at all. But and back to the Bengals, I mean, they're going to get their quarterback killed.
Yeah. I mean, I thought they fixed – that was the other thing that they've been talking about all offseason, is how the Bengals have fixed their offensive line. Well, you could have fooled me. Their offensive line looks just as bad as it did last year. I mean, we thought we talked – you heard Zach Taylor talk about all these changes that were going to be made after the first week, and then they come back against the Cowboys, who, I thought they had no chance with Cooper Rush out there as your quarterback. I didn't think they had a chance to beat the Bengals. But when you can sack Joe Burrow 6 times and, pressure him, who knows how many, they seemed like they were in the backfield all day long. They had 8 tackles for loss. Yeah. Well, when a team has 8 tackles for loss and 6 sacks, well, you better believe that the offensive line is garbage.
Well, and you got Joe Burrow playing totally out of his head. He was not Joe Burrow on Sunday. I mean, he had Micah Parsons on the brain, and the Cowboys just, the Bengals looked like they did 2 years ago rather than they did last year. And we're going to have to see how fast they can recover. And it's going to be this is Zach Taylor's. Last year, everything went well for them. This year, not so much. And it's going to be up to that coach to try and find that formula that worked last year.
Yeah, and I don't believe he can. I mean, you've heard me. I mean, the guy was he'd won 3 games in 2 years until they got Joe Burrow. And, then Joe Burrow comes in last year and just lights it up. Even though their offensive line was horrible, it didn't matter. He took them all the way to the Super Bowl because, A, Joe Burrow's Joe Burrow, and then B, they've got 3 of the best wide receivers in the league, and they just made it happen. But they did also kind of sneak up on people, and everything, as you mentioned, bounced their way. They got their kicker was putting things through the uprights no matter where he was at, and everything just kind of went right from them, and they kind of snuck up on people. Well, they're not going to sneak up on anybody this year.
No,
and I'm telling you,
seriously.
Yeah, giving this guy a raise and extension kind of seemed like a Tennessee coaching move right there. Seemed like it was a little bit premature. I mean, I know he went to the Super Bowl, but hell, they would have won the Super Bowl if it weren't for him being the coach.
Especially the cheapest team in football. They open up the piggy bank when they don't have to.
Yeah, they didn't have to. I mean, they won't pay anybody to come play there, but they're going to give this guy a raise. And, they lost the Super Bowl because of him. And now they've lost 2 games to start the season because of him.
And they might lose their franchise quarterback if he doesn't figure out how to get somebody blocked.
Yeah, or change up. They've got this 5-7 step drop stuff going on when he can't even get the snap before he's getting hit. It's like
Right.
run some quick action, run a screen. I mean, do something that might keep Joe Burrow intact.
And then on Monday, I mean, there was no doubt. I'm probably right now the best team in the NFC dominated, the best team in the AFC dominated. So Dak ain't happy. That was well, Dak doesn't have to worry for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, Jerry wants to put him out there this week, so I don't know. Hey, Cooper Rush played pretty well. I got to be honest. I didn't think he would. I had no faith in that guy. Did he look amazing? Not really, but he had 19 for 31. I think he had around 230 yards, touchdown, no picks. I mean, he was way better than I thought he would be, and he definitely gave them a chance to win. And I was very surprised, and I have to give him credit. He played a good game.
Well, I came this close to comparing Micah Parsons to Lawrence Taylor, and that would be huge in my book. That's almost sacrilege. But how can you not? Right now, the way he's playing right now is the way LT used to affect teams, and it's going to be interesting on Monday with the Giants. I think Wink Martindale is going to give Cooper Rush a little lesson in blitzes and stuff like that, and maybe able to rattle him. But I know Micah Parsons is going to give Daniel Jones all he wants to handle. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game on Monday, and it might be good for the Giants to be that way because they got a good field goal kicker. But Micah Parsons is the animal.
He's unbelievable, and if you don't recall, he was playing 3 or 4 different positions last year and excelling at all of them. But just because of the way that he can wreak havoc in the backfield, I mean, I think you have to put him on the edge. This guy has got 9 tackles. He's got 4 sacks already. He was I think he had 5 QB hits in that game. 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. I mean, he's unstoppable, and this is what the Cowboys have needed. They haven't had a guy that can get in there and get after the quarterback in some time. DeMarcus Lawrence was supposed to be that guy, and since he's gotten paid, he's done not much.
You have to probably go to the Landry days for guys that were consistently like that, like Randy White and Too Tall Jones and those guys. The thing, it's going to be interesting on Monday. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I mean, you got Dan Quinn and Martindale. It's going to be very interesting, the defensive game plans of that game.
Yeah.
Those are 2 of the best defensive minds, I think, right now in the NFL.
Buddy, I would take Dan Quinn as my coach over Nathaniel Hackett any day, Andy Bradford.
You think?
I mean, I'm sitting there watching Dan Quinn, and I think about the defense before he got there. I mean, remember the Cowboys used to score 30, 40 points a game and lose. Right. And now, they're holding Joe Burrow to 17 points. And hell, he scored 8 of those in the fourth quarter when they were, when the game was pretty much over. So I got to give a lot of credit to Dan Quinn. I can't believe he didn't take a job this offseason because I know he was all.
Well, I think I know that. I think the way you're looking at it is the fact that I think next year, I think he's going to have that Dallas job. You there? Ooh, we lost him. Well, we'll wait for him to sign back on. We got we're gonna go to start to take a look at the 0-2. Here he comes. You dropped out.
I got too excited.
There you go. All right, well, let's take a look at the 0-2 teams. Starting the AFC, the already poor starting teams, we should say. The Raiders 0-2. I mean, we went over it just a few minutes ago. Josh McDaniel, I mean, supposed to be an offensive genius, has 2 great wide receivers, has and you have a pretty good quarterback, and what's he going to do?
I don't know. I got to be honest. I picked the Raiders to finish last in the division, but I did not think that they would start this poorly. I mean, Chargers week 1, they didn't play awful. They stuck around. I mean, they're not getting blown out. I mean, I guess that's what we can give them. They played the Chargers tough. They lost 24-19. And then,
Right.
we obviously saw the collapse against the Cardinals. But if you recall, in week 1, the Cardinals got shellanked by the Chiefs. What was it, 44 to what? I don't even remember.
21-23.
I think it was, they scored all their points at the end in garbage time.
Right.
But the Cardinals looked horrible. So the fact that you had the Cardinals look horrible again in the first half, and you're like, oh, okay, they're going to get their win, and the Raiders are going to get off the schneid, and everything will be okay. And then they blow that lead, and the coaching just looks awful. They can't get Devontae Adams really involved. I've got some question marks. I don't think the season is necessarily over for the Raiders. I'm not ready to give up on them, but I'm definitely concerned.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing they got going for them is right now the Broncos and the Chargers are kind of question marks where they might be able to hang around a little bit, but they're definitely the 4th team in that division at this point. The Bengals, who we just talked about, they got to get their offensive line in shape. I don't think their defense is that bad, but I mean their offensive line is a mess, and they got the Jets coming up this weekend. I think the Jets might give them all they can handle.
Well, I mean, if we see Joe Flacco, reincarnated again, like we did last week in the second half, I mean, if Joe Flacco can play like that, I could easily see the Jets winning this game, and I'd take Robert Saleh over Zach Taylor any day of the week. So I think this will be a very interesting game. It's very hard, in my opinion, to judge teams after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I can definitely say that the Bengals, look no bueno. Now they were down and out. What were they, 2-5 last year? And we were all writing the Bengals off, and then they righted the ship and got things going. So I'm not ready to just say that the Bengals are done, because they have Joe Burrow. And when you've got Joe Burrow, you got a chance. But if Joe Burrow gets his ass knocked out, then your season is definitely over.
Exactly. And like you said, they're not going to sneak up on NBA. Here's the questionable one is the Titans. I mean, my favorite team, the Giants, snuck up on them on the first week to take that 21-20 victory. But last week, they got their comeuppance against right now the best team looking in the AFC right now, the Bills. And they looked like they had no answer for the Bills.
Well, I'm not shocked about this. We saw what happened in the playoff game. I mean, your boy Stevie Tannehill over there throws a interception to start the game. He throws an interception in the middle of the game, and then he throws an interception to end the game. I mean, if that's not a perfect example of what you've got in your quarterback, I don't know what else is. And you know what? He hasn't looked much better throughout the first 2 weeks. I mean, the defenses know that he's not going to beat you deep because they don't have a wide receiver that can get by anybody. And then they've got a quarterback who's not very good. So they're not really worried about the Titans' passing attack, and they can put 9-10 guys up there to try and stop Derrick Henry. And I feel bad for Derrick, because not only does their quarterback suck, but their offensive line has played horrible. Taylor Lewan went down with an injury. That's not going to help them. I don't know. I'm definitely concerned about the Titans. I thought they overachieved last year and was shocked at how many games they won considering their personnel. And I just don't know, man. Vrabel's a great coach, but it's hard to make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what?
Crap.
Yeah.
Well, and the only thing they got going for them is the other two teams. They're basically 0-1-1, but they might as well be 0-2. Are in their division as well, and that's the Colts and the Texans. And the Texans, we know what the Texans are. The Colts are just one of those teams that make you scratch your head. And right now, Jacksonville's in first place.
Yeah, for today. Although I don't know, man. I mean, who is going to win this division? The Texans, the Jaguars, the Colts, the Titans? I mean, who the hell knows? I've got to be honest with you right now. To me, the AFC South looks like the worst division in football.
Well, let's give it a month and make sure the NFC East doesn't go back to the way where they've been the last 2 years.
Well, I'd take the Eagles over any of those 4 teams right now.
Yeah, the other 3 teams, though, including the Giants, who I root for, we don't know about. So, yeah, right now I agree with you. The AFC South is looking pretty poor. And out of those teams we see, what do you think? Who do you think is the most likely to get straightened out? And well, we know the Texans are what the Texans are. Colts, Titans, Bengals, Raiders. Of those four teams, give me the team you think is going to get straightened out. With the team you think is going to just have the worst year?
Honestly, it's a tough question. I mean, I just haven't seen anything out of the Colts that leads me to believe that they're going to turn this thing around. I mean, Matt Ryan's looked horrible, except for the fourth quarter against the Texans. They've looked really bad. Out of those four teams, it's hard for me to pick. I mean, I know Bradford's going to hate me for this, but I honestly probably have the most faith in the Raiders. The problem is that they're in a very good division. Even if they do win some games, starting off in an 0-2 hole is going to be tough to dig out of. But if I had to pick which team I feel most comfortable about, I would have to say the Raiders, because they've been in both the games. I mean, they could have won that game against the Cardinals if they didn't completely choke it away at the end. And, the first week they played a good Chargers team, and that was a close game, 24-19. So I would, making a short answer very long, I guess I'd say I feel most comfortable with the Raiders.
All right, we go over to the NFC where we have 2-0-2 teams. We talked about the Falcons, who are playing better than an 0-2 record is showing. Marcus Mariota's better than I thought he'd be. And they're doing a lot of good things. They just don't have that finishing kick. And then you have the Panthers, who right now, I don't know if Matt Rule will make it to Thanksgiving. I mean, as a Giant fan, I was glad to be. I feel sorry for Baker Mayfield, what he's been going through. So I'm not going to jump on Baker's grave, but Martindale made him look bad. McCaffrey couldn't get going. They don't have a lot of things to build around. And I mean, that team looks just poor right now.
Yeah, I mean, they look like they looked last year. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield at least gives them a chance in these games, but I do feel bad for him. I mean, the offensive line is garbage. The defense isn't even playing close to as good as last year. Their coach, his wife's already moved to Lincoln because she thinks he's going to get the Nebraska job. So, it might be a good idea for him. I'm not really sure. You recall when this whole thing went down and they gave him 7 years and $72 million to take over the Panthers job and got rid of Ron Rivera, who had taken them to the Super Bowl. I'm just like, what the hell are they thinking? And it hasn't looked good since Matt Rule came into town. And I'm with you. If he makes it to Thanksgiving, I'll crap my pants because they're already talking about firing him. I think if they lose again this week, it might be over.
Yeah, and like I said, I feel sorry for Baker, who joins an 0-16 team, and then he goes to a worse team. So, and it's hard to be worse than 0-16, but this team could be. So those are the two teams in the NFC. We're coming up on game time, so I want to get what's your top? Let's get to our top 10 lists.
All right.
You want to start off?
Yeah. Also, we forgot our players of the week too.
Oh, yeah, I got to do that too. Okay, you want to do players of the week first?
Let's do players of the week first because I can go through mine real quick. I've got to give some credit to somebody who gets no credit ever, and that's Jared Goff. The Lions, came back, and Jared played very well in that loss to the Eagles. We found out that the Eagles are pretty legit, so losing to them doesn't look real bad. They've already got their first win of the season. Last year it took them 13 weeks. This year, week 2, they're 1-1, and Jared played well, 20 of 34. 256 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's huge. So I got Jared Goff. I got Tua on this list, 469 yards, 6 TDs, and the comeback win. And then I had to give the other quarterback in that game. It certainly wasn't Lamar's fault they lost, as we already talked about. 318 yards, 3 touchdowns passing for a guy who can't throw, and 119 on the ground with a touchdown on only 9 carries. I got Lamar, Tua, and Jared Goff.
Now, my number one, I'm going on the defense side of the ball, Micah Parsons. When you got me talking about Lawrence Taylor, that's about as high an accolade as I can ever give out. And this guy he's the kind of player, whose mere presence on the field can dominate a game because everything's being run away from him. He's gonna get double blocking. He tilts the game towards the Cowboys, and he's a magnificent player. I wanted the Giants to get him, and I'm glad I was right. I'm unhappy he went to the wrong team. I'm going Tua number 2. I'm joining you on that. It was nice to see him kind of looking like his Alabama days. And number 3, I'm going to Joe Flacco. I mean, Lamar would have been a good choice too. Nothing against that, but Joe Flacco, kind of unforeseen, taking a team that hadn't had a victory like that since 1970, and the Jets. Let's face facts. With what they've been like for the last 40 years, they had every reason, down 13 points and 90 seconds left, to sit there and just throw in the towel and say, "Screw it, let's get on the bus and start drinking beer."
Yeah,
but they didn't. And I think a lot of it had to do with the veteran quarterback. So that's my guys: Micah Parsons, Tua, and Flacco.
I got to give Joe credit. I mean, Joe Flacco played out of his mind, and to sit there and win that game when a lot of people figured it was over, and he never gave up, and he didn't let that team give up, and he deserves credit for that victory. I agree with you.
All right, top 10. I'm going to start out. My number 1 is Buffalo.
As is mine.
2 is Philly.
2 is the Chiefs for me. I still have I've got a strong belief in Mr. Patrick Mahomes. He looks damn good. And like I said, I thought the defense looked pretty good too. So I'm sticking with the Chiefs at 2.
I'm going with the Chiefs at 3 for me.
I got the Eagles at 3.
Okay, so we just flip-flopped that. 4, I'm going with Tampa Bay because of their defense. Ain't nothing to do with their offense. Their defense, though, is playing like they did 2 years ago when they were Super Bowl champs. So I'm going with Tampa Bay.
I also have them at 4. They had 5 takeaways and 6 sacks. Yeah, I think I'll take the Bucs.
My number 5 is kind of high for this, but I'm Miami. I'm putting them high, but I'm going Miami number 5.
I also have Miami. They're 2-0, and the offense is humming, and the defense, got stops at the end of the game when they had to. So I got to give them credit. I mean, they went out and reworked that receiver core, and you got to give their general manager some credit. He got Tua some targets, and he looks a lot better with those guys.
My number 16 is, of course, the Giants. No, I'm just kidding. But my number 16 is the Rams. As bad as they've looked so far, they're still the Super Bowl champs. I'm going to keep them in it. They're 1-1 so far. Their only loss was to the Bills. So I put the Rams at number 6.
All right. I got the Chargers at 6. I believe they beat the Raiders week 1, and they were right there. If Gerald Everett doesn't run the wrong way on that route and didn't want to come out of the game, they could have won that game. So I got the Chargers at number 6.
All right, number 7, I got Green Bay. Just because it's Aaron Rodgers, he came back against Chicago, which he always did. Still not totally sold on him, but it's Green Bay. So until somebody proves and be different, I'm going to keep them in the top 10. I'm going to keep them at number 7.
I've also got Green Bay at number 7.
Number 8, I got Dallas because of their defense. What they did to Cincinnati on Sunday. I just think Cooper Rush worries me, but I really have a feeling that unfortunately, I have a feeling they're going to take care of business against the Giants and drop them out of the undefeated. And I just think Dallas right now is my number 8 team.
Yeah, I do not have Dallas in my top 10. I've got the Ravens at number 8. I think, that was a rough loss against Miami, but they looked damn good the first 3 quarters. So I think if they can play like those first 3 quarters, they're going to win a lot of games. And if they could just get the running back back in the lineup, I think they're really missing J.K. Dobbins. I think people sleep on him, but Hell, I watched him run for 2,000 yards in one season at Ohio State, and I watched him play very well as a rookie till he got injured. So I think Lamar needs a little bit of help running the football. But if he can get J.K. back, I like the Ravens at number 8.
Yeah, and I put the Ravens at number 9. I just their defense worries me. Other than that, I mean, Lamar is playing again at his MVP level, but that's expected. Of course, I'd love the coaching staff, but right now, number 9 for the Ravens with a potential to move up. And my number 10 is the Chargers.
My number 9 is the 49ers. Now that Jimmy G's playing, I've got a lot of belief in them. Nick Bosa looks like Nick Bosa. So I like that. And then my number 10 is the Rams. I know they haven't looked great. They got roughed up a little bit week 1, but they found a way to win the game last week. They've got Sean McVay, who's proven to be a Super Bowl winning coach, and they've got arguably the best receiver in the game in Cooper Kupp. So I've got the Rams at number 10.
All right, my bottom 3 teams, I got Carolina, of course. You got to go. We've discussed them. I go Houston as the second worst, and Indy is the third worst right now because they should be much better. I'm just saying Frank Reich and his team really worries me, so that's why I've got them as the third worst right now.
Yeah, it's funny. The Jaguars are kind of creeping out of everybody's bottom, but I still am not believing in the Jaguars. I've got the Jaguars down there. I've got the Panthers, and I've got the Colts too. Those are my bottom 3 right now. I mean, I'm just going off of how they played. I know the Jaguars won on 124-0. Hey, great job! You won one game. Beat somebody besides the Colts. That's been the only
crappy team.
That's the only team they beat the last 3 years is the goddamn Colts. So beat somebody besides the Colts, and I'll move you out of my bottom 3. How about that?
Yeah, it's kind of like beating your sister at basketball. You know what I
mean? Or beating your. It's like when you work so hard your whole life to beat your dad. It's like that big moment when you beat your dad the first time, and then like 10 years later you're like whipping your dad's ass, and you're like, man, this isn't really that great anymore. Wow, I should have enjoyed that more when it first happened.
All right, we've not been good with our picks the first 3 weeks. Both of us are 1-5, so let's have a comeback this week. We got the game time coming up. All right, give me your 3 picks.
Yes, 3 picks. I actually am going to take the Chiefs over the Colts. That's a big. The Chiefs over the Colts because, as I just said, the Colts suck. So I'm liking that. I'm going to take the Ravens over the Pats. And I'm going to take I don't know. I don't know if this is a good move or not. It's so hard on 2 games to pick, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Niners over the Broncos.
All right. I'm going total underdog this week. I got the Jets getting 6 from the Bengals. I got Indy getting 5.5.
Yep, that's the one I picked.
And I got the Cardinals getting 3.5.
Who are the Cardinals playing?
The Rams. The Rams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a possibility. That's a possibility, there, man.
That's my one. I shake my head about that one, but the only thing about it is I never pick the Cardinals, and I'm like, I was looking at it, and I go, you know what? I'm going to go for them now. See, they can only hurt me once. I'll never go back to them again if they hurt me. So
yeah, I feel you. It's been tough to pick. I got to be honest. We are not the only ones that have struggled. I listen to the NFL radio all day long, and let me tell you, it's not just us that's been missing these games. I mean, hell, what do you pick the rate? You picked the Ravens last week. They look great for 3.5 quarters. Then all of a sudden they give up 28 points in the fourth. I mean, you pick the Browns. They're beating the crap out of the Jets until the minute to go, and then they lose. So, you pick the Raiders. They're beating the crap out of the Cardinals until the fourth quarter. So it's been a little tough to predict.
Yeah, and well, like we said, the preseason means nothing anymore. They don't play. You don't get to see who the players are. You don't know. The only thing the preseason does is it maybe alert you to a rookie who seems to have his leg up or knows what he's doing quickly. The rest of the guys don't play. You don't know. Belichick said it. September, it matters. They count. But the fact of the matter is, it is what it is. You're going to have to be better by the end of October, November, December. That's what you look to do. The first 6 weeks is a learning experience. And we lost Nate again. I don't know if he kicked the. There he is. He's coming back. So anything, but like I was saying, it's all about learning experience in September, seeing how good you can be going into October, and hopefully be at your best for November, December. So we will see what happens, but it should be a good game tonight. I don't know. Be very interesting, but
who you got tonight?
What?
Who you got tonight? You got the Steelers or you got the Browns?
I'm going with the Steelers just because I don't trust Jacoby Brissett, and I like Tomlin a lot better than I'd say Kevin Stefanski. I thought he was going to be a much better coach than he's turned out to be. And he's been a total disappointment for me as a head coach.
They looked good that 1 year, but, that's when everything was kind of rolling and Baker was playing well and, everything was going their way. But, when they've needed somebody to scheme something up, he has certainly fallen flat on his face.
Yeah, he seems to be overwhelmed by the job, and the thing was, I think I looked it up. I think he was in Ivy League, but I think he was a defensive back in the Ivy League.
Yeah.
So you'd think, even though he's an offensive coordinator in the pros and stuff, you'd think he'd have a little bit of an eye for defense, especially a defensive backfield that's about to get crushed by a long pass.
Yeah, there's people pointing fingers all over the place on that one. But the truth of the matter is, I played the position. If you're in cover 3, you can't let anybody behind you. I don't care whether you think you got somebody help over the top. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Let them complete the pass underneath and tackle them, and they're gonna run out of time. You just can't let somebody go right past you for the game-winning score. That's just unacceptable.
90 seconds left. 90 seconds left. You're in cover 3, and you let up bombs. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, let's get out to watch the game. We got Pittsburgh, Cleveland tonight. People, tune in. What do we got on man coverage this week?
Yeah, don't know, but you need to definitely tune in to last week's show. We've got the Holt show up if you want to get the breakdown of week 3 in college football. And then also, if you just want to catch the interview, we have that split up as well. So you can just watch the entire show, catch it in its entirety, or you can go and just watch the interview, because we've got those two split apart. And we did have on the 1989 College Football Player of the Year, 1990 College Football National Champion quarterback, Colorado Hall of Fame, retired number 3, Darian Hagan, currently the running backs coach at Colorado, on the show. He unbelievable stories about winning a title and the Big 8. He was 20-0-1 or 22-0-1 as a starter in the Big 8. At a quarterback at Colorado. So he never lost a game in conference, and that was the best conference back then. Nebraska, Oklahoma, that was where it was at. And he never lost a game, and he had some great stories. So everybody go check that out. Watch the show, and we'll be there. We're not sure who's going to be joining us, but we should have some people joining us on Sunday, breakdown week 4 in college football. Should be some good games this weekend getting underway.
All right. We will be back. Everybody have a good night. Have a good weekend. We will see you next week.
Sounds good, buddy. Give me a call.
Yep.